CTS potentiometers are an excellent choice for guitar volume and tone pots, right? And they're used by a lot of guitar manufacturers, Fender, Gibson, a lot of the PRS stuff, many others, and they're probably the number one name that you're gonna find if you're building guitars and you're looking online for pots. CTS is gonna come right up and be the obvious choice for most people. What you'll find is many of them are advertised as made in America. A handful of different websites are going to tell you made in America, and Musician's Friend goes so far as to say handmade in America, whereas others don't list the country of origin, and most of the guitar manufacturers, Fender, Gibson, etc., just keep it kind of quiet. What's going on here? Well, if you haven't guessed by the title of the video, 100% of them are made in Taiwan, and 100% of them have been made in Taiwan for some time. So I went down this rabbit hole and I've got a lot of good answers. There's a lot to unpack right here, so let's dive right in and figure out what's going on with these made in America CTS pots. First, just a second of housekeeping. Welcome to Linny Leather, makers of natural Italian leather guitar straps, as well as many other Italian leather goods, all handmade here in the United States. Check out a few of the links in the description and consider subscribing if you're into guitar videos. We're having fun making them. If they get enough views, we'll keep going. So CTS guitar potentiometers, they're great. They're also all made in Taiwan, and they have been for a while. This goes for all of the rebranded ones by the guitar manufacturers. So Gibson, Gibson Historic, Fender, Fender Pure Vintage, all of that stuff are all CTS pots. They're all made in Taiwan, as well as the smaller companies like DiMarzio and Bare Knuckle Pickups and 920D and any of these other companies that are offering that stuff. They're all made and manufactured in Taiwan and shipped over here. You will always be able to look somewhere on the potentiometer and see the CTS logo. If you're curious about CTS, go on to ctscorp.com, and there's a huge amount of information online. All of the variables for the different guitar potentiometer variables and the tone sweep and all of that stuff, part numbers, you can find the CAD files on there. It's pretty remarkable, as well as the company history. CTS, Chicago Telephone Supply, they've been in business for close to 130 years, and they make a lot of different things for a lot of different industries. Guitar potentiometers being a small part of their business. It's absolutely transparent on the CTS website that it's all CTS Taiwan, aka the Republic of China, not the same as the People's Republic of China, although they think so. Watch the news, that's a whole thing. We're not going to unpack that right now. Let's stick to the guitar potentiometers, which are very clearly made in Taiwan. So what is going on with all of these websites saying, made in America? Like I said, Musician's Friend, handmade in America. There are even people online who will tell you that the American made ones are better, either more durable or they sound better or whatever's going on. It's all just confusion, I think. Certainly you could make a case that these companies are doing this maliciously, but I really don't believe, that Musician's Friend is trying to commit fraud, because that's illegal and they're a big company. So where does this confusion come from over the American CTS pots and the import CTS pots? That confusion comes from three different places. The first reason for that confusion is that CTS pots were made in the US, and they intentionally probably kept that vague when they moved that manufacturing overseas. If you are a vintage guitar nerd and you know when this happened, please add it in the comments. Was there a sudden date when the last American pot was made and the first ones came over from Taiwan, or were they phased gradually over or anything like that? I don't know, but for the last few decades at least, it's very clear that they've all been made in Taiwan. But because they were American made and everybody's trying to draw on this, vintage and whatever, a lot of people just still think that they're American made, and that's fine unless you're selling them to people and telling them that, because you're wrong and technically that's illegal. The second reason for confusion regarding the American versus import CTS guitar pots is that there are two different sizes of guitar pots, American and import. So having some guitar pots labeled as, these are the American pots and these are the import pots, what they mean is that they're actually different sizes. Like the shaft is different and the splines are different and different knobs fit on and that kind of thing. Like if you have an Epiphone, you need the import one. If you have a Gibson, you need the American one. But that is just the spec and the size of the item. And again, you can go look at the CAD drawings right on the CTS website, which is great. But having them labeled as American ones and import ones is very confusing to a lot of people, and it definitely has led a lot of people to believe that the pots themselves are manufactured in America or are imported, and that's just not the case. So is it intentional? No, it's necessary even so that you get the right part for your guitar, but it's very confusing, borderline misleading, but probably not intentional and just something that happened and something that threw a lot of people for a loop. The third place that the confusion comes from is because a lot of retailers heavily imply that these are American-made parts, even though they know that they're not. And they won't go so far as to say these are American-made potentiometers, but they will say things that would certainly lead you to believe that at first glance. My favorite example of this was Missing Link Audio, and I'm going to read their quote directly. "It is our goal to provide high quality and American-made parts. We find that MLA potentiometers provide a more accurate and refined response." Two different sentences. It is our goal to provide American-made parts. We believe these potentiometers are wonderful. They never actually connect those dots and say these are American-made, but by saying our goal is to provide high-quality American-made parts, we think that these potentiometers are wonderful. At first glance, that definitely leads a consumer to believe that they're saying they provide American parts. They think these parts are wonderful. Ergo, they must be American-made parts, when it's just not the case. And that, I'd say, is a little bit malicious. It's misleading intentionally. You're trying to make people think it is an American-made part as hard as you can without going the actual distance of saying that, because you know that it's not and that that's illegal, right? I mean, that's fraud. You're not allowed to do that. Two sort of final thoughts here. Not all CTS pots are created equal. There are different tapers and different components and different tolerance ranges and all of that stuff. So buying from, Mojo Tone versus Bare Knuckle versus Gibson versus a normal CTS pot, there will be variations. But it's in the sweep of the knob and maybe some materials used and maybe the tolerance of, hey, if that's a 500K pot, it's within a certain range of that, right? Because some of them are within 20% of 500K, some of them are much closer. So there are differences between CTS pots, and definitely shop around and look at those, The last final thought is that I went down the CTS rabbit hole. It looks exactly the same if you sort of peek into the Borns and Alpha potentiometer rabbit hole, as far as all being made not in America, and often being advertised as such. I can't confirm that for sure. Again, I didn't take the time to do the research like I did with CTS, but definitely take a look if you're getting Borns pots or Alpha pots or whatever. And just use your better judgment. When in doubt, contact the company, contact the retailer, actually get in touch with somebody if it matters to you, right? CTS are wonderful pots, they're great, whether they're made in, Argentina or Mexico or Florida or whatever. Personally, I don't feel that it impacts the quality of that item, but that's entirely up to you. And again, you don't really have much choice these days. There are probably some companies who are making potentiometers in America, but for the most part, they are all made in the Far East. And as long as you know that, that's fine. And let's all just stop arguing about the American one sounded better. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please, again, check out Linny Leather. Look at the links in the description. Natural Italian leather guitar straps, all kinds of other wonderful natural Italian leather goods. Be safe out there. Have fun, and we'll catch you next time.